Oh, man. There's something, man. Okay, go on and start reading before you exhale all the way. Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Okay. More history of the Elohim on earth. In the way, chapter 2, we discussed the Elohim and their modifications of pre-humans to create modern man. This discussion deals with the events following that creation. The Adamu, or man, was originally created to work in various projects around the world. These included mining, food production, construction, etc. By giving man the ability to reproduce on his own, the population began to multiply quite rapidly. The Anunnaki began to clamor for more of the workers. Human females were further altered so that conception was possible not just once per year, but every 28 days. This can be found in Genesis 3, verses 16. It began to be a status symbol among the Anunnaki to have as many Adamu as possible. Different models were produced to perform different tasks. Finally, a model was produced as a suitable house servant. This was a great success, and further refinements were made to them. One was that they were made to look like smaller versions of the Anunnaki themselves. They were very fine-featured, but smaller in size compared to the larger workers. At this point in time, a change in the garrisoning of the Anunnaki soldiers took place. They had been stationed above Earth and on other mining planets. They were now able to live on the surface and to set up their communities there. You will read of these soldiers in Genesis chapter 6, where it read, "The sons of the Elohim said of the daughters of man that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. There were Nephilim, Anunnaki soldiers, on the earth in those days, and also after that were the sons of the Elohim came unto the daughters of man, and they bore them children." The Anunnaki soldiers started to reproduce with earth humans, Ehumes. That's what the earth humans were called, Ehumes. Some of their offspring became great leaders of Ehumes living in cities. Soon word of what was occurring on earth reached the leaders of the collective. These leaders demanded to be brought an Ehume for examination. The Elohim were very worried that their leaders, who considered what they had created to be an abomination, would order all Ehumes destroyed. They had no choice but to obey, and to send one of their creations to the great vessel now orbiting the earth. When this Ehume arrived, he was questioned and examined thoroughly by the leaders. They were enchanted with this little version of themselves and said so to the Elohim in charge of earth. They ordered that the Ehumes would be taught civilization as well as establishing rules governing their care. This is the story found in Genesis chapter 5. The Ehume that the Elohim sent was kept by their leaders and did not remain on earth. His name in the Bible is Enoch. Verse 24 says, And Enoch walked with the Elohim and was not, for the Elohim took him. After these events, the population of Ehums began to increase dramatically. They mostly lived in cities along the coastline. These humans began to become very violent and troublesome. Disease was rampant. Loose bands of humans would even attack Anunnakis if caught alone in an isolated spot. One Elohim leader was particularly angry at the situation. He ordered that the population of man be cut down. This was to be accomplished by limiting the amount of food supplied and to starve off a portion of the population. This was a complete failure, as most Anunnaki could not stand to see their Ehum suffer in this manner. Finally, a plan was made by the particular Elohim to fix the problem once and for all. The mining engineers from Orion had come up with a plan to bring large amounts of molten subsurface material to the surface. They would explode a large number of thermonuclear devices inside underwater volcanoes in the Atlantic. This would produce a lot of precipitation and tidal flooding of the coastlines. All Anunnaki were ordered inland from the coast, and the entire base at what you would call the island of Atlantis was evacuated. There was one other small thing they were required to do. They were ordered to leave all Ehum workers. The bombs were detonated, and all went as planned, with one small hitch. The resultant plate movement, caused by so many bombs going off at once, sank the island base of Atlantis. When the Elohim returned, they had another surprise waiting for them. The Anunnaki had secretly hidden most of the Ehums in large transport ships. The leaders were unaware of this at first. They were saddened by the lack of Ehums and regretted having let them perish. It was then that an Elohim who liked Ehums announced that they had been spared. All of the Anunnaki were happy at this news, even the one Elohim who had ordered their destruction. A pledge was then made to Ehums that never again would the Elohim order their destruction. It is a promise made to man that has been kept ever since. This entire story is, of course, the legend of Noah and the flood. It occurred approximately 11,000 BC. This point in the history of man marks the beginning of what you know as civilization. The next historical way chapter will go into the interrelationship that developed.
Get back into it.
Okay, let's see.
We're on a roll.
Yeah, it was starting, Abby.
Yeah, it's rolling. Well, we can